awarded Best Station in the Nation 2020.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Lore Love Tales with your host Trin. My laptop just went off. Hey guys, if you heard that. But welcome back to the Lore Love Tales, a show that uses the cultivation theory in media, whether that's movies, TV, literature, music, radio, etc. I'm your host Trin. Let's begin. So, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm pretty wired. I had associates today. Woo! I'm ready to go. I really limit myself to at least 2 Celsiuses a week. That's it. I try my best, but I was in my my writing for public relations and advertising class about an hour or 2 ago, and man, I was in between. I had 10 minutes to go get a Celsius from down the street because I wasn't gonna pay on the vending machines on campus because they want to charge $4 to $5 for a Celsius, which is ridiculous. So I just walked down to 7-Eleven and got one. I got the pink lemonade flavor. I didn't even know those existed. And my leg was bouncing. I was asking questions. I was really engaged, and now I think it's still here. So we're good. We're gonna have so much energy today. It's super good. All right. So if you're new here, I usually start off my my show with a poll that I ask people, or poll or question that I ask people on my Instagram. And this week's question was 25 million hits your bank account. What are you doing with that money? So I'm going to read some of them off. Someone said, retiring and living in a different country every year for the rest of my life, investing into all my plans and helping my family. My ringers are just all on today. Giving it to my mom, distributing it to donate to families in Gaza, and then 20 million into savings that gives 4% interest per year, which is 800,000. Then bills and travel. It's probably the last one was like the smartest decision. The other ones were very like honorable and really loving answers, which I really like. I like all these answers. Me, I didn't even think to answer this question. 25 million. I mean, 1 million is even a lot. Honestly, I would probably pay all of my family, if they had any student loans, any debt that they had, I'd pay that all off, including my own. If they wanted to get their new car, or get their car paid off or something like that, I'd do that, which I feel like would still have so much more left over. So yeah, I'd put a good chunk of it in my savings, and then just have some in my arsenal just to feel secure. But like 25 million, that's a lot. And then of course I could donate to as many charitable nonprofits or anything like that, any people that I see fit. A good chunk of my money would probably also go into my old elementary school, everything like that. There's 25 million. I mean, it's so much. Sky's the limit. So that was mine. And you're probably wondering, okay, why are we asking this question? So last week we talked about Superman. And if you want to hear that episode, that is on my YouTube channel. It's only Trend. Or if you want to listen to it in your car or something like that and you just enjoy podcasts, I would suggest going to either Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you listen on different platforms, I'm going to add those too. iHeartRadio, Amazon Prime, all of that stuff. So, anywhere where you find your podcasts. And I talked about, in that episode, I talked about how people really take money and just run with it. Their whole personalities change. And I wanted to kind of shift that into this today's Tuesday hour. So in that poll that I posted last week or a couple days ago, I put a clip as a little hint. And the clip was from Hercules. Now, Hercules is not the movie I'm going to be talking about today because we're going to be talking about a rewatch and, stuff like that. But I put the Hercules scene, what's the song called? One Last Hope, sung by Danny DeVito. And that was the big hint. Danny DeVito voices Phil from Hercules. He's an advisor. And the hint is from solely Danny DeVito because he also voices the lorax in the movie, the 2012 version of the lorax. And that's the movie that I decided to pick. And I'm not going to lie. If I had a nickel for every time Danny DeVito voiced a short advisor for the main protagonist, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? So let's get into it. My experience with Dr. Seuss, it's kind of it's a decent sized 2003 baby kind of thing. my first book was The Cat in the Hat. And I remember watching the movie as well, and just kind of remembering a majority of the lines from the book. He should not be here. He should not be about. He should not be here when mother is out. And it's Green Eggs and Ham. If you watch a lot of anime, watch a lot of Studio Ghibli, they animate their food so well. And although I really enjoy the movie and I've always wanted to try the food in Studio Ghibli films, Green Eggs and Ham was the first one for me. I was like, man, Green Eggs and Ham, I'd love to try that. I'm sure there's thousands of recipes online, so I'll probably make it one of these days. Horton Hears a Who, the movie. I think I went to go see that with my sister Candace when it came out. And then I also had the teddy bear version of Horton because I love elephants. And he had the little miniature book, which I kept with me for a while until I lost it. And for a long time when I was younger, if you guys know this, Jim Henson had a puppet show called The Webulous World of Dr. Seuss. So I watched that a lot when I was a kid. So there's a lot of Dr. Seuss integrated into my upbringing. So it wasn't, fairly foreign for me to rewatch this movie. So let's get into it. In the rewatch, watching this as a 22-year-old, man, guys, it's plain as day. And this is funny enough because this is a kid movie. And and I remember seeing this in the theaters and the whole message kind of went over my head. The general big message. And again, this was 2012, so I was 9 at the time. And I did enjoy the movie, but now watching it, of course, I was like, hey, there's some reoccurring themes up in here. So Thneedville is a completely brainwashed society. Everyone is living in this this we're going to get into it. Everyone in Thneedville buys air. You heard me right. They're buying fresh air, which is a commodity that should be absolutely free. And literally within the first few minutes of the movie, after Lorax's introduction, the Thneedville song, the lyrics include, in Thneedville, the air is not so clean, so we buy it fresh. It comes out of this machine. And satisfaction guaranteedville, in Thneedville, we don't want to know where the smog and trashy chemicals go. I just went swimming and now I glow. The last line was from a little boy who was literally swimming in Thneedville, and because of all the chemicals, we don't know where all the smog and fog, we don't know where they go, but all of a sudden, the boy goes swimming and now he glows. And that's kind of it's kind of like a reference to, how many cartoons there are when they talk about climate change and lakes get so toxic that if you go in and come back out, you have superpowers or something like that. I think that's what it's referring to. And this blob, let alone, just this alone, just encompasses all the themes in the Lorax. And you're probably like, what are all the themes in the Lorax? I wrote them all down. Or at least the majority that I can get down. So the many themes in the Lorax: deforestation, environmental exploitation, corporate greed, the overconsumption of a need, freedom of speech, and the importance of conversation. Practice what you preach for soon-to-be salvation. You guys see what I did there? This is kind of be a recurring thing throughout today's episode because it's Dr. Seuss. Yeah, so all of the themes that we're going to talk about today. They're going to be all over the place. We'll talk about corporate greed, but also freedom of speech, and then also importance of conservation and practicing what you preach in this whole thing. So I titled this episode The Reverse Underdog, kinda, including the kinda, because when we talk about the underdog, of course, what I talked about last week in my art of storytelling class, we talk about underdogs and how they're usually introduced in the very beginning of whether it's a book, it's a song, a movie, TV show, what have you. But it's true. Our underdog is Ted. It's not the Onceler. And Ted, our underdog, is learning about why Ted ends up being the underdog. Why do you have to be an underdog in the first place? And we get to see Onceler's side of the story. Because in the book, because I did reread the book, we don't get to really see much of the Onceler. As we see his hands. If you ever go back to the Lorax and you read the book, you hardly see his face. But in the Lorax, they just they stretched and expanded his story to give him actual look. But in the book, you can only just see his arms, his face, shadows, and stuff like that. So really encompassing why Thneedville is the way that it is and showing it, I thought that was a really good thing that they did in the movie. Illumination, Illumination is also really funny for animating their characters. Their characters in Illumination have so much rhythm, especially in their hips. You have to understand, it's not like a thing where like you really pay attention. No, it's like really in your face. It's not even just the Lorax, it's Despicable Me. It's what's the other Illumination movies? Even, the Minions, all of them. I feel like all Illumination animators, they just really add so much rhythm to their characters, and there's so many dance sequences in the Lorax that you just can't help but see it. I don't know, I just felt like I needed to add that. I'm sure they have a lot of fun, but it probably takes a very long time. With that being said, though, I did add, like, I was gonna include. No, I didn't. I'm gonna read a little bit, couple of parts of the book, not the entire book, because that'd be kind of silly. But yeah, the Onceler, his story is explained in the book, but I like that it was over the course of like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, that we get to see where we can envision what Onceler looked like, except with just not his face, not just his eyes. So, let's get into it. Audrey's wish. So, Ted, in the movie, because not in the book, Ted buys a toy, like a toy helicopter, that he intentionally crashes, quote unquote, crashes into Audrey, which is voiced by Taylor Swift. Ted is voiced by Zac Efron, which is like this is a very telling cast. Like, this is a understandable cast setup for 2012. So Ted comes over because, he crashes his helicopter. And Audrey, she's an artist. She shows this mural that she painted with all of the truffula trees. And the truffula trees do not exist in Thneedville, hence everyone having to buy air, because we all know that trees produce oxygen and stuff like that. It's a give and take. So I'm going to read a part from it, a part where in the book, Onceler talks about the trees and how he eventually gets to them. So it's page 22. But those trees, those truffula trees, all my life I've been searching for trees such as these. The touch of their tufts was much softer than silk, and they had the sweet smell of fresh buttery milk. So this is just an imagery of how much she really cherished these trees, and she had never seen them, but she knew that they used to live. They used to be amongst Thneedville, and no one knows why, because everyone is brainwashed. We don't want to know where the smog and trash and chemicals go. We just are going to buy fresh air and not question a thing about it. So Audrey's wish is to see an actual truffula tree. And Ted, being the teenage boy in love that he is, he ventures out and tries to find a tree when he asks his grandmother and his mom. His grandmother knows because she was around at a time where you didn't have to pay for fresh air. Now, Thneedville is under so much surveillance. I got cameras everywhere. It's very Big Brother, because O'Hare overlooks the entire city because he controls all of the money. He controls what goes in, what goes out, all of that, so he can continuously stay rich, which is a telling thing for a lot of other people in this society, in America. Anyway, Ted ventures to see the Onceler with his grandmother's advice to give him 15 cents a nail and a shell of a great-great-great-grandfather snail. And then we get into the story of what the Onceler actually does with the tree. And when we finally get in touch with the tree, when he finally cuts the tree down and starts making the Thneed, he meets the Lorax. The instant I finished, I heard a gazump. I looked. I saw something pop out of a stump. Of the tree I chopped down, it was sort of a man. Describe him? That's hard. I don't know if I can. He was shortish and oldish and brownish and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that was sharpish and bossy. And then he goes on to say, "Mister," he said with a sawdusty sneeze, "I'm the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues, and I'm asking you, sir, at the top of my lungs." He was very upset as he shouted and puffed, "What's the thing you made out of my truffula tufts?" "Look, Lorax," I said, "there's no cause for alarm. I chopped just one tree. I'm doing no harm. I'm being quite useful. This thing is a Thneed. A Thneed to find something that all people need. It's a shirt, it's a sock, it's a glove, it's a hat, but it has other issues. It has other issues, yes, far beyond that. You can use it for carpets, for pillows, for sheets, or curtains, or covers for bicycle seats." The Lorax said, "Sir, you are crazy with greed. There is no one on earth who would buy that fool Thneed." So The Onceler makes the need until unexpectedly everyone wants it. He goes out to market it into town, but it's a flop. But then we see this all the time in cartoons where somebody just so happens to use the thing, and the need ends up on this lady's head, and she originally had glasses and braces, I think, but all of a sudden when she shakes her head, her hair comes down and she's all beautiful. Her glasses go away, she can see perfectly, and her braces are all gone, and everyone sees her as this beautiful woman. And everyone's just like, wow, now we need a need. Oh my gosh, this hat, like, I need to have that hat. I have to have it. So everyone is parading down to parades down to the forest, and everyone was like, hey guys, we need a need. So Onceler comes and calls all his family. Let's see, which page is that? Yes, it's right here. I rushed across the room and in no time at all, built a radio phone. I put in a quick call. I called on my brothers and uncles and aunts. And I said, listen here, here's a wonderful chance. For the whole Onceler family to get mighty rich, get over here fast. Take the road to North Niche. Turn left at Weehawken, sharp right at South Stitch. The reason why I said aunts like that is because I don't say aunts, I say aunts, like uncles and aunts and uncles. However, aunts and chants doesn't rhyme. So I had to catch myself really quick. So in the movie, we get a little bit of a backstory with the Onceler's family. And Onceler's family doesn't believe in him, not one bit, but they believe in him once he starts making money. And unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people. People don't care about someone until, oh, we finally come up in the world. Oh my gosh, I knew this person when they were just a baby. We knew you could do it. We can do it. But that's the thing. Money makes people act a certain way. And we understand what happens once that money goes away when we talk about it. So we understand the first part. Onceler cuts down one tree. And the lorax, in both the book and the movie, says, hey, I don't want you to cut any more trees. We need these. The animals that live here, they feed off of the fruit. And we need the air. We need this. It's an ecosystem. We all work together to live in this one place. And you're cutting this stuff down. It's this whole deforestation, what I'm talking about. And once you can't get into this habit of doing this, but once he got a taste, which is funny because in the book, he sells a thneed for $3.98. I get that's kind of like, how they're supposed to rhyme, but $3.98 for a thneed, which is like, something that everyone needs, is so. I guess it's a bit of a bargain if it does everything. It's for $4, but I digress. He makes this promise in the movie, not in the book, but in the movie, the Onceler mentions that he will never cut down any more trees. And you're probably wondering, like, okay, well, how did they make the thneeds then if they didn't cut them down? So in the movie, when Onceler's family comes in this big old RV that's probably more than likely terrible for the environment, just the carbon. Oh my gosh. Anyway, they come in and they tell Onceler, like, hey, we can't harvest the trees in enough time to produce thneeds, right? Because they're just like pulling, they're pulling the tufts off of the trees at one time. But that was the promise that Onceler made. He wasn't going to cut any more trees because looking at black and white, Onceler came into this space that was already working so well. And now his mom, that didn't even care about him like that in the first place, was like, we need to make this faster. Maybe we could just cut down the trees. Now, some people would argue that Onceler's family was the reason, but no, it's the Onceler's fault because he was supposed to keep his promise. But they start cutting down trees left and right. Now, we're going to get into this song. This is the only song we're going to play. And I know I talked about copyright last time, so if you are listening live, this is fortunate for you. If you end up listening on the podcast streaming, you might want to go listen to it and then come back. Just like if you're watching on YouTube, you might want to go back to it or listen to it. But, if you don't, that's perfectly fine as well. So I had this all set up. Oh my gosh. And it's still here. So I'm going to have you guys listen to this and then we're going to go to break. So immediately after this song goes, we're going to go to break and then we're going to come back because we've got more to talk about. So this is How Bad Can I Be from the Lorax.
The vapor clouds of jewels on college campuses are prevalent everywhere. Small clouds of vapor rise to the heavens as students depart from the buildings. But it needs to be known, Jewel is not cool.
Guys, I'm back. This is the Lore Love Tales with your host Trin, and we are talking about the lorax. Before I get into that, oh my gosh, I love that Jewelette so much. It's so funny. Me and our manager Ariel were talking about how it's so funny, and I think the first time I played it and I heard it and heard like Jewel is not cool. It's just plain and simple, but it's so funny. It's one of my favorite ads on here. But yes, so from How Bad Can I Be? I want to give you guys a little bit of time to simmer on it, I guess. This response. That was the Onceler's response to the Lorax in the movie, saying, "Hey, this is bad. If you keep cutting down these trees, this is not going to be good for anyone." And that was his response. And what I thought was really cool in the song, which is why I wanted to play it all the way through and not give you a specific segment, is just to hear the transition from how can I be bad to how bad can I be. And I thought it was really cool, the intensive, like how the guitar intensifies his evilness. I thought it's Ed Helms really did his big one. Every time I listen, when I rewatched the movie a couple of days ago, was it Sunday? Yeah, it was Sunday. I watched it on Sunday. And when I was watching the Lorax, I was like, yeah, this is definitely Ed Helms. I can't help but hear Bernard. Like Andy, I couldn't help but hear Andy Bernard from The Office every single time. And it was cool because at the time when I watched the Lorax, I wasn't watching The Office at the time. I started watching The Office when I was like a freshman in high school. But now I was like, this is Andy. Absolutely. But voice acting is so much fun. One of these days, I would hope to do voice acting one day. However, the next things I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to let you know now. It is going to get biblical. If I lose you, I lose you. If I don't, hey, stick around. Because I am a Christian. Not to be confused with Christian nationalists. I will never claim that. And that's an insult if you ever associate me with such. Anyway, Ecclesiastes 5:10 makes me think of this instantly. The one who loves silver is never satisfied with silver. I am in the CSB version. I read the CSB just for reference. And whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with income. This too is futile. But in majority translation, it comes as meaningless instead of futile or futile, whatever. I thought about this because one, I was like, the Onceler, he couldn't do it. He couldn't plant one single tree. Before, he couldn't do a thing where he cuts down the tree and then puts a seed into another one and then it's just like, it just reimburses it. They really couldn't figure this out. But no, his love for money, his love for fame got in the way and not resurface. He's not, what's the word that I'm looking for? He's not replenishing anything for the trees because he's getting all this money, as long as I'm getting paid, who cares what other thing? Who cares if a few trees are dying, right? So it also reverts back to here from when I said in the scripture, when I read it, one who loves silver is never satisfied with silver. Because in today's age, overconsumption is a trend now. Everybody loves to overconsume what they have because it's an oversaturated media. We're on TikTok all the time. TikTok is probably the biggest contributor because if we don't have this specific thing, then we're not hitting the clean girl aesthetic. We're not being the person who's hustling all the time. We need to have this intricate planner that we need to have. We have to have this specific set of scrubs. I just saw a TikTok the other day of this guy who was doing a scrubs, like a nursing school haul. And he was talking about how everyone's buying a specific stethoscope when you don't really need to use it, or buy a specific set of scrubs, or buying anything. And you don't have to buy so many pens. You already have so many pens, stuff like that. But people want to have a specific look. They want to have this certain image and uphold this certain image when they're not understanding that they'll never be satisfied. If I buy all of this stuff, at the end of the day, I'm going to want more. And that's the real problem at hand. So on top of Ecclesiastes, this also makes me think of the parable of the sower. And to explain it, it's going to be in Matthew 13, 1 through 9. it talks about a farmer who replenishes seeds. I'm a little bit of a baby Christian, so you got to be patient with me as well. But along the seeds, they go in different places. When the farmer puts place these seeds, some go along the path, and some birds devour them. Some go on the rocky ground, and they grew quickly since the soil wasn't too deep. Some went among some thorns and got choked by the seed, and then some went to the good ground, and they produced fruit, right? And a lot of this time, I realized that in this literal sense of this movie, the onceler is reaping what he sowed. He realized that he did not invest back into the farm. Sorry. Anyway, he's not investing back into this forest. He's not replenishing the seeds back to make more trees to take account of the ones that he cut. And with that, he's leaving all of this stuff behind in the worst way possible. Now, in the song, when he mentions smugulous smoke and schloppity schlop, he's talking about the smoke that is being left from the amount of my friend Ope is across. She's just dancing over and she's distracting me. But anyway, the smoke is polluting the air, and the birds that fly in the forest, they can't breathe, they can't live, because majority of the birds are usually in the air majority of the time. And then the schloppity schlop is all of the oils, all of the chemicals to make and manufacture all of these thneeds are polluting the water, and the fish that live in the water, they can't survive in this water. It's killing them. And then the truffle of trees that you're cutting down, they produce truffle of fruit, and the fruit is being eaten by the bears. They can't eat if the trees are cut down. So where are they gonna go? So the lorax, he tells them all, the birds, the fish, the bears, you guys have to go. I have to send you somewhere off so that you guys can survive. And this is all the onceler's fault. And this is just a domino effect, because now that we understand why the people in Thneedville, they don't know what's going on. Oh, we don't want to know why we have to buy air. All we know is that we have to buy air. And when where the smog and trash and chemicals go, we don't know. But I just went swimming and now I glow. So, sorry. I just once we watched it, Ted, our underdog, realizes, man, this really is all your fault. Because of your greed, your constant need. I promise I'm not doing this on purpose. Since your constant need to want to have fame and success and all this wealth, if you've watched the movie, you'll see his change in his attire. He's got all these grabs, and he's dressed as a regular guy in the beginning, but in the sequence of how bad can I be, he literally changes. He even buys a new guitar from opposed to the beat up one that he had been using that was so reliable to him. And he's got this new suit. He's got this big flashy hat. It's green for an obvious reason. But now I'm just like, you really do reap what you sow. So more into the parable of the sower, we understand that from the seeds that were along the path, this is to reflect how when someone hears the word and doesn't understand it, the evil one comes, snatches away what was sown in his own heart. The rocky ground, and from the seeds that came from the rocky ground, they hear the word and immediately receives with joy, but if it's not much root, it has a very short life. It's a very short lifespan with that specific plant. So it's not going to live long. It's going to receive it, but it's not going to live long. And then among the thorns, this is someone who would hear the word, but the words of this age and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. But the seeds that had good ground produce the fruit. This is someone that hears and understands the word, who does produce fruit and yields. So now, and yields better understanding. So this is something that I thought it was really cool to connect with, because this is something applicable to everybody. If you, especially with Laura, a Christian woman, I understand how some people receive the word. They receive a certain piece of information, and some people will just cast it away. Some people will understand it but not share it. Some people will be afraid to share it, and it never gets anywhere. But people who truly share it will bring it to the rest of the world. And I wanted to talk about how a conversation I had really collapsed all of this together, just kind of encapsulates this all together. So I had a conversation with someone of like a while ago, and I was talking about how in my field, in the industry that I want to get into, which is public relations and advertising, and my minor is communication and media. So of course, it's exactly what I'm talking about with media, how consumption, how sex sells, outrage sells, all of these things sell. And the farther we get from peace, the more divided we are. And that's something I'm also learning in my international conflict and peace building class. But other than that, I was talking to this person about, regardless of where I am, regardless how bad the world is, I still want to try and make it better while I'm here. And the person told me, you can try, but it won't work, or anything, something adjacent to that. All in all, it was like, you can try so hard, but it won't. At the end of the day, it's probably not going to work out. I understand where you're coming from, but it's just going to stay the same. And in my head, I was like, it's kind of ridiculous. You know what I mean? No matter what, as long as I'm here, I want to change the idea of storytelling. Because of me getting into this industry, I want to change how storytelling is told, because how advertising is, people have this constant need for advertising to be something I have to have because fear of missing out, fear of being included, imposter syndrome, all of these things. But how storytelling is, it brings people together. And I want people to feel closer with storytelling and advertising and public relations and all of that thing, because I'm not saying nobody does it. That's not what I'm saying at all. But where we're going doesn't seem right to me. And if I'm going to be in this industry, I want to change it. And if it doesn't change, so what? At least I tried. And that's something that showed up in the Lorax, the book, and in the movie. So this is the last part I'm going to quote from the book. And once the Lorax and the Onceler had that standoff in the movie, Onceler was talking about how he doesn't care. He's got his rights. He's got all this money. Who cares? And for as long as possible, I'm going to keep making money. And in that moment, the last truffle tree fell. And because of that, he can't make any more needs. And since he can't make any more needs, he can't make any more money. And since his money was gone, his family was gone, and his success was gone, his name was gone, and everything got washed over, and generations kept coming and coming. Somebody in between made profit off the fact that since there's no more truffle trees, this forest can't produce any oxygen, and people are starting to get cardiovascular diseases. Everyone's coughing around him. O'Hare, once he heard about it, because there's a scene in the movie, there's a guy that he's working with, and the guy goes, oh, I wonder who's next gimmick, who's going to make the next gimmick. And O'Hare, with so much, quote, I guess, promise at the time, he's like, yeah, I guess, yeah. And that's when he makes the gimmick where people need to buy air. He makes a profit off of the Onceler's wrongdoings. Out of his greed follows greed. And at the end of the day, there was this sermon that I saw from 2819, which is a very, very popular church up and coming, and respectfully so. And the pastor, Philip Anthony Mitchell, I think, right? Sorry. He talked about money. And at one point, I believed that, when people said money is the root of all evil, at one point, I did believe that. I did believe it, but now I disagree, because money doesn't mean anything. And I want to say this for right now, because I know that I come from a very privileged place. I'm currently sitting in a room with very expensive equipment in a private school that is DePaul University. It's not a cheap school. And I understand that we live in a society where we live in a capitalist society. So, of course, we need to have money. But in this case, where people are making money to be their very thing to live by, they're idolizing money. Money, at the end of the day, is not going to matter. When it's all said and done, you cannot bring your riches with you. You cannot bring your possessions with you. So why even parade money around like this so badly? Why is everybody measuring their wealth with their personality? It's ugly. So in the sermon, the pastor talks about how in the hands of someone, it's funny because he was trying to do a scenario. If you've seen the video, it's funny. He was like, $10, $20. I wish somebody would just give me $20. He was like, somebody give me some money. And somebody walked up and gave him $20. And he was like, oh, thank you. You're not getting this back. But when he demonstrated, you know, how when $20 is placed in somebody's hand, you can do whatever you want with it. In one hand, you can go get yourself some food. In another hand, you can give it to somebody. You can give it to somebody who needs it. Or you can do something that you're not really supposed to do with that money, something you should not have done. And that money is just the driver. Or like the money is the resource, right? You're initially figuring out what you want to do with that money. And once you obtained that source, now your brain is going somewhere else. Money does not when people say money makes the world go round, I understand it, but at the end of the day, it changes people and it really reveals what people are capable of. And when I talked about in the very first episode of this show, or of this quarter, because I've had episodes before, if you want to look at them, look at YouTube channel. But a couple weeks ago, when I opened this quarter about Jaws and how Jaws was released, and how everyone talks about they have this just scary fear of sharks. When people are hardly in the sea anyway. And again, what I talked about, shark deaths or shark fatalities, 8 were only confirmed in this entire year. But you know how many sharks that humans kill each year is about 100 million. So money isn't the root of all evil, and it's not the scariest thing in the world. It's a human being. And I stand by that. The most scariest thing in the world is a human being, no matter where you come from. Because if you got something in your hands, if you got money in your hands, or you got the wrong idea, but you think it's the right idea, everyone's cooked. And this is exactly what happened with the Onceler. So in the book, we get to the point where the lorax leaves because there's no more trees here. I cannot make anything until you make this right, and you come, and I will eventually come back. So in the book, once he leaves, the Onceler says, "In all that the lorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks with the one word, unless. Whatever that meant, well, I just couldn't guess. That was long, long ago, but each day since that day I've sat here and worried away. Through the years, while my buildings have fallen apart, I've worried about it with all my heart." And the next page, because there's so many pop-up ads around here. Okay, here we go. "But now," says the Onceler, "now that you're here," he's referring to Ted, "the word of the lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not." So later on in the movie, when Ted receives the truffula seed from the Onceler, he finally gives him the seed, and you need to plant this. This is your job. You must spread this. You must spread the truth, because you guys aren't living the way you're supposed to be. You shouldn't be buying air. You should be breathing air. You should be living freely. So in the song, there's a sequence that comes because O'Hare, it's Big Brother, like I mentioned earlier. Big Brother's always watching. So when he knows that Ted has it, he's going to do everything he can, because here we go. We have this corporate greed, and we want to conserve this seed because it's the last one ever. And if this goes away, there's no trees, but if we plant it, there's hope. So in the song, I'm not going to show you the song. I'm not going to quote the whole song, but a little clip. In the lyrics, it goes, let it grow, you can't reap what you don't sow. Plant a seed inside the earth, just one way to know its worth. Let's celebrate the world's rebirth. We say let it grow. Everyone wants to know what the earth is like when it was naturally the way that it was. When Ted breaks down the wall and he shows that this is what the earth was, and we have the opportunity, we have the ability to bring it back to where it is. You should not be having to pay for air, hence what the grandma also mentioned as well. And we're going to let it grow. We must share the gospel and what Christianity truly is, because if we don't, no one will know how freeing a Christ-centered life is. And that's what I got from, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So that's all that we've got today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was something that I really liked. When I usually research all of my things, I usually spend a couple days and take on it. But this was a new approach for me. So if you like it, please let me know. Give me some notes. And if I was wrong in something, please let me know as well. I have no ego in this. With that being said, we're going to have our closing remarks. Something. Okay. Because I wrote a note in here to say if I had time. If you listened last week, I talked about Invincible. There's a small little tweak that I did. I talked about the Thraxons and how I was like, the Thraxons, they have a lifespan of a fly, which is about 9 to 12 months. You guys, I was going to be a zoology major at one point, but zoology is not entomology, so I don't know too much about bugs, and I was completely wrong. A fly doesn't live 9 to 12 months. A fly lives about 2 to 3 weeks. So that was a big jump. So yeah, I meant to revise that. Anyway, closing remarks. So this is the Lore Love Tales. If you listen live now and you want to hear what happens next week, or if you showed up in the middle, if this is the last couple of minutes and you're like, what's going on? And want to hear more, we're here every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. CST. If you like to listen in the car or anything like that, or you're a podcaster, you want something else in your rotation, some other podcast show posts on Monday, so you can't listen to anything else until next Monday, you can listen on Wednesday, because I usually post these episodes Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. CST, anywhere you find your podcasts, and I usually post so early for my morning folks that commute or just like have a very slow morning. If you're a visual watcher, if you like watching podcasts on YouTube, you can follow that and see it on my YouTube channel, which is It's Only Trend. All one word, all lowercase. I said undercase last week, and that made me laugh re-listening to it. It's Only Trend, TREN, for reference, for clarification. If you like to chat, if you like to be a part of the weekly questions, weekly polls that I do around a couple of days before I come back on here and go live, you can follow me on Instagram, Tren_MONAE. So TREN_MONAE. One more thing. I am Radio DePaul's podcast producer. We just had a really big rebrand, so I will be in charge of that. If you're a Radio DePaul student, or you're just a college student, you just stumbled here somehow, and you want to hear about navigating young adulthood, college life, all of those things are going to be in the Radio DePod. We just changed the podcast name too. It's super cute. I want to talk about my credentials as well, because not only am I just a senior, but I also am a transfer student. So I have that. I was also in a out-of-state school. So I have that. And I had a gap year in between. So I feel like I have enough credentials to talk about majority experiences. And if you're a DePaul student and you want to come on here and you want to talk about any stories, any college stories, any cautionary tales, what have you, just get in touch with me. I am on Radio DePaul podcast at gmail.com. And if that was the wrong email, just reach out to me with all the other things I said on my Instagram or anything like that. But I'm pretty sure that's right. Radio DePaul podcast at gmail.com. Yes. And Radio DPod gets posted. The first episode I will record this week, but it'll be posted and up to be listened to next week, so we can get that distribution set up. So it's usually probably going to be on Spotify first and then Apple Podcasts second. So yeah, man, I get paid to yap, guys. Yay for me. That's it, guys. I will see you guys next week. If you want to see what goes on next week, I might talk about I think I want to talk about music, but we'll try and navigate that. I say that all the time, then I have to change it because of copyright stuff. But I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.